Welcome to our 118th podcast. Today we're talking about co-creating change. What's one thing you can do to help your peers to co-create change in the most co-createy way possible without devolving into anarchy? Keep listening to find out. Welcome to Harmonious Workplaces, a podcast about corporate culture, organizational change management, and workplace behavior. Harmonious Workplaces was started by independent consultants to explore and challenge workplace issues and to build better ways of working. It's a blend of theory and practice, grounded in real-world experience, working with organizations of all sizes across a wide range of industries. If you own a business, lead a team, want fresh ideas about the workplace, or just enjoy listening to consultants talk candidly about how to make work more effective and more enjoyable, we invite you to sit back, relax, and dive in with us to Harmonious Workplaces. Hello, Harmonious Workplaces listeners. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Rich Cruz, an organizational development consultant. This is Ben Kleiman, our resident certified change management professional. How are you, Ben?
Hey, Rich. Hey, everyone. Doing okay. How are you?
I'm right on, man. It's great. It's good.
Excellent.
It's a beautiful Chicago morning here. And, Ben, a few months ago, we presented, and we've talked about this several times over the last few months, but we presented at the Association for Change Management Professionals, ACMP Midwest Conference. And the theme of the conference was co-creating change, right?
Right.
And we've mentioned that in our segments on stakeholder engagement and in other previous episodes. But we thought, let's maybe devote this podcast today to that concept of co-creation.
Yeah. I think that's great.
Yeah,
I would love to. And one of the things I was thinking about in preparation for this is when we talk about co-creating the change, are we talking about co-creating the technical part of the change? Like, I want this system to look a certain way, or I would like the process to work a certain way, this new process that we're working on, or I would like this new organizational hierarchy to roll up this way or that way. Or are we talking about co-creating the way the change is implemented, how we're doing the messaging, how we're figuring out who our key stakeholders are, how we're deciding on the tempo or the cadence of our communications or our trainings and things like that, how we're assessing whether people are engaging or not engaging, how we're assessing the success and measuring the success. So to me, those are very different kinds of things.
Sure. So for all intents and purposes, I think co-create. We've talked about culture, right? And culture
Yeah.
is never just created by one entity, and then this is the way that it's done. I mean, I guess there are some places that have been built like that, but
Boss Betta in the Pet Shop
that's
is a
right.
classic
A classic
example in our
example.
Hermie cartoons
Right.
of this is how it shall be
That's exactly
and
right.
no other way.
Yeah. But even then, like if you have a culture that's created that way, you're going to have subcultures that form, right? That are
Well, that's the unwritten secret there is that that everyone knows is that you're going to have one official culture and then you have one or many secret cultures that have all the unwritten rules and all the ways of behaving that allow people to exist within this very strict, non-discussive kind of company culture.
Right. Yeah. The guys who created dialogic organizational development, Jervis Bush and Robert Marshak, they term that as clandestine behaviors, right? Things that happen that are not officially on the books, right? But they
I like that.
but they happen, right? And so we need to have a united front. I mean, and I think almost every change management framework talks about, you have, like Cotter says, you have to have a guiding coalition. ACMP has a, you need to align your stakeholders, pro
And
side,
sponsors as well.
and
And
sponsors, right? And
sponsors as well.
sponsorship, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And of course, last the last episode, we even talked about Prosci's success formula of sponsorship, project management, change
Project
management.
management, right?
Yeah,
Change management, the success triangle. Yeah.
right, right. So I mean, all of this is about that we have to work together to co-create this and make this something that belongs in the organization and is sustainable after the change event, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Absolutely. And I think sometimes that sustainability part gets lost or is not discussed as much because it's always very easy to stay focused on the design of the change, the implementation of the change, the getting it done and having the pizza party at the end of it. Whereas that sustainability is what's really, really critical.
sure. Yeah,
Otherwise, it's just like a blip in time and then it reverts back to the secret society that you were talking about.
yeah. Well, and going back to your question, like, is it about the inputs and the co-creation of the change itself, right? Or is it the the co-creation of the process and how it's implemented and how it gets rolled out, right? So uh what it I mean, I'll give you my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
I think it's a little of both. um I think that there's something to be said for, process being owned by somebody with, competence and not necessarily always, credentials, but the ability to be able to facilitate the change, right? So and so there may be resistance to that process, um, but it does need to be owned by somebody. But the way it gets sustained and the way that it gets into the like enculturated, right, from the formal and informal learning, socialization, and onboarding, that type of stuff, that I think needs to be there. There needs to be some individualization to that, right? I mean, people have to make it their own to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about the need for people to be motivated and how it's so much more productive and beneficial when people can be self-motivated, intrinsically motivated, and ultimately that's what gets many people in that adoption curve over the line
Right.
is that internal motivation. And whether it starts internally or you start with sticks and carrots and eventually they become more internally motivated, they buy in at some point, they start changing their behaviors a little more willingly, whatever that looks like. At some point, that has to become a little bit more internalized because you
Absolutely.
just can't. You run out of sticks and you run out of carrots eventually.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. There's the push method of, my way or the highway, or even, I mean, even in marketing, right? We have push marketing, and in my opinion, a lot of change management has some foundation in marketing, because,
Sure,
right.
in both cases, you're trying to get people to change their behavior.
Right. Yeah. So we can push messages out. We can say, here's what you have to do, and all that, right? But the marketing that arguably is the most effective, right? They say people like to buy, but they don't like to be sold, right? Is when you can use that inbound marketing, right? That the ability to be able to hit their pain points and their motivations and have them come in because there's the what's in it for me,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, you want people to be coming after you as a vendor, as a marketer. You want people to be coming after your widget, your tool, your process, whatever that is, and seek you out. Same concept, I think, is what you're getting at, is
yeah,
for change. You want people on the floor or people throughout the organization to be looking for information about the change, to try to understand it, to try to see, hey, how can I plug into this?
hmm,
Where can I try to affect this change? Or how can I just participate in this change?
right, right, yeah, yeah. Bringing
Yeah, so
yeah, some level of the from ADCAR, some level of that desire, right,
right.
to be part of that change. You know,
That's really interesting because I don't know enough about ADCAR or the ProSci methodology to know when they originally designed ADCAR, was that desire an awareness of um, the change and a desire to um, participate in that change, or was it a desire to co-create that change? Because they're two very different things to
they are.
me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can say, oh yeah, I want to buy that Porsche,
Mm-hmm.
but do I want to help engineer the next Porsche? Probably not a good
Probably not
idea
at
for
all. Right.
anyone
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
on the roads.
Right.
But that's total to me. Those are very different things.
Yeah. 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 You
So that's
make a
that's
good
that's
point
a
there,
kind of
Ben.
cool
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Well.
we probably want to take a break,
Yeah.
but maybe when we come back, we could talk a little bit about maybe the distinction between the more participating and co-creating the change in terms of the technical side, the project management side of the
Sure.
change versus the change management side of the change,
Love it.
and how they're different in terms of how you might co-create.
I love it. Okay. We'll be right
Cool.
back.
Oh, hi. I'm Hermie, the HR hermit crab. So, if you've ever sat in a meeting thinking, are we all talking about the same thing? I have a book that might feel very familiar. In my third cartoon book, Trust Fall Pratfalls, you'll find a collection of short, funny workplace moments. The kind that make you laugh and then immediately think, yeah, we do that. We cover things like unclear priorities, communication that somehow creates more confusion, leaders who mean well but miss the mark, and employees trying to make sense of it all. It's basically a highlight reel of how the heck did this happen? But each story also contains evidence based, valuable information such as simple ways to communicate better, practical ways to support your team, and small changes that make work a little more, well, workable. You can finish each story in just a couple of minutes and actually use the lessons the next day. Plus, it's a cartoon book, so you can leave it on your desk and be the envy of all your cubicle mates. Check out Herbie the HR Hermit Crab Trust Fall Pratfalls, available now on Amazon. Visit www.hermiehrhermitcrab.com or www.harmoniousworkplaces.com/Herbie. Oh, and if you see your workplace in here, maybe don't read it out loud in the next staff meeting. Make change your friend. Bye.
And we're back. So Ben, you teed this up as to. So we've been talking about co-creating change, right? And making this distinction of is it the change itself? Is it the process, right? So tee that up for us again
Yeah, I
before
think
we
what was kind of curious to me, what sounds like maybe an interesting thing to dig into a little bit more, is this idea of we're talking about how there's the project management side of any kind of change.
right.
That's the technical implementation, the scope, the duration, the budget, the resources, the more of the what are
Mm-hmm.
we changing,
Right.
and a little bit of the how are we going to implement this new process?
Yep.
How are we going to implement this new organizational structure? How are we going to roll out this new IT system? Whatever that is,
Mm-hmm.
that's the sort of project management technical side of the change. And then there's the change itself. How are we going to assess where the organization is from a baseline perspective? Are they ready for this change? Can they absorb this change? How are we going to assess what the culture is like? Do they majority of people like receiving information in this way or a different way or a mix of things?
Sure.
What kind of training types of things is this organization able to provide? What's worked historically? All of that. And then you sort of roll out that strategy and execution of the change, how you engage stakeholders, which we've had quite a number of episodes on in
For sure.
terms of engaging the stakeholders. And I think there's an element of that where the change leadership and the change practitioners can invite people in to help co-create the change
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that software developers can invite people in to help design a system or help design what that new process, if you're a process engineer, what that new process should look like based on the new equipment or based on the new regulations or whatever that is.
Sure.
Like you were saying before, you have those people who are right close on the front line to whatever that new is.
Right.
It's a new piece of equipment. You have an expert who's going to become very proficient at that new machine. You want that person to help you guide how that machine is installed and maintained and those kinds of things. Should that expert also help guide how you inform other people about the benefits of this new machine or help train people on that new machines and how you use it or how you clean it and maintain it and how you service it and all of those kinds of things, how you know it's in tolerance or not. So it's those two things.
Mm-hmm.
Inviting, I guess, maybe let me pause there and see if that makes
It
sense.
does. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Um, Go ahead.
I was going to say it makes what you're talking about here makes me think about from a design perspective. Google has like a 4-part design process. They've got understand and discover, define, develop and ideate, deliver and test. And it's meant to be done as a collaborative effort so that the individuals who are involved in the design have some ownership
Mhm.
of the both the process and the outcome during a sprint. And it's usually I think I could be wrong. I think it's a month or 4-week sprint that they do,
Okay.
right? But
Yeah.
it's pretty much, you know, so the point of what I'm saying here is that it is a very um, it's a process that involves multiple people, and they are all they all have some input into the design of the feature or the MVP, the minimally viable product, right?
Mhm.
At the end of that sprint. Um,
It sounds like pretty classic agile development
yeah, to
methodology.
some extent. Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. Yeah,
tweaked for their environment, their language, whatever, but it
right.
it has this connotation of agile development.
Yeah, yeah, and right, exactly. Like I mean, in an agile environment, everybody has their bespoke, tasks that they need to do. Not necessarily always because it is a creative process, right? And there's some level of design and test and iterate and develop that nobody can really tell them exactly how to do this and how to create something, right? There's some degree of autonomy among those people. So
Mhm.
they so those people are creating something that they have some ownership of, but then they bring it all together into something where the group decides this is the direction we're going to go. Some people are going to, there's conflict resolution that needs to happen because some people are going to be like, no, this is the better solution, or that's the better solution, right?
Mhm.
Um, but the individuals have a stake, and they feel like they have a stake, and even if their solution wasn't the one that was chosen, it still played into that final decision. So there's still some degree of I helped to co-create this because
Yeah.
I was part of the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes perfect sense. So I guess I'm curious if you've seen that similar kind of thing work outside of the technical delivery of whatever we're implementing. Have you seen that happen in the change side of the delivery where you have stakeholders, broadly speaking, whether they're leaders or change designates or delegates or subject matter experts? Have you seen it work or work really well where those folks are invited in and help co-create the way that the change is implemented?
yeah. Um, so if I get that, if I get what you're asking here, um, I think part
So
of it has to do with how effective it is from a change perspective is, and I think this is where like impact assessment, not just in the beginning but throughout the engagement, like
Mhm.
the more people are impacted by the change, the more they should arguably be part of that process of creating whatever that is, right? So if you look at either your racy charts or your the what's that quad chart where it's I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's the interest versus power versus influence, right? Interest versus influence.
Like a stakeholder mapping
Yeah,
kind of a
stakeholder
thing.
mapping. Yeah.
Okay.
So understanding who's going to be impacted the most by this, you probably want to involve them as deeply as possible. Um, those
If
people who aren't as
especially if
impacted,
they have a lot of power, yeah.
yeah, right. And those who are little have little influence and little impact, uh, the 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 change. How do I put this? The, I think arguably sometimes those people are the ones that are a little harder to get involved in the to make that change because they're, they- they're not as interested, right? They're not as
Right.
involved,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Right.
So I think there's some level of the degree to which the impact is the well, yeah, I guess that determines like how much of the co-creative process that they're going to have. I mean, you can't involve everybody deeply into the
Right. Then
into
it
the
becomes
conversation.
anarchy and chaos.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. Um, I guess if I make a specific example, maybe it'll help me talk to it
Yeah,
and
yeah,
think through it a
perfect.
little bit more. So if we're rolling out new software,
Hmm.
you have a lot of people who are involved in designing that software. They say, I want the login to work a certain way. I want this button to be red and this button to be blue. Those are very, very common kinds of conversations.
Sure.
What I what I see a lot is that people, from a subject matter expert perspective, or from a leadership perspective, or from a middle management perspective, tend to get involved in those kinds of conversations. They say, "Well, we need it to." We need the login to work a certain way because it has to be compliant with our corporate security, or it
Right.
has to leverage these tools that we already have. We have people saying, well, the button needs to be blue because it has to match a certain branding of our color scheme, or this button has to be red so people are alerted that if they click it, it stands out and it's, bad things will happen. It'll delete whatever work they had, right? So
Yeah.
it's those kinds of things. That's, to me, that's involving people in co-creating the design of the and the implementation and the rollout of that technical solution.
Sure.
I have seen that a ton. I have seen it a ton with software development. I've seen it a fair bit as well with new process development,
Hmm.
where, like you were saying before, you have those experts who know a process eight ways to Sunday, up, down, and sideways, and they say, okay, the new regulation says we have to do it this way. When we're going to make this change, and this change, and we're just going to rewrite some SOPs, take those new things into account. Done. We'll write some training. Done.
Sure.
So I've seen it that way. I've seen it a little bit when you have a new organizational structure, or when you're, let's say, letting people go. There tends to be a lot less co-creation there from a technical. It's usually a much smaller group
Right.
that will decide we want the hierarchy to look like this. That, just by nature, almost is a lot less co-creating. If it
Yeah.
is, it's at the very maybe more senior levels of the organization,
Sure. Sure.
much smaller group. That's all on the technical side. I don't think I've seen it work, or at least I can't think of anything recently where I've seen co-creation on the change side, where I've seen people say, how do we involve people in designing the training other than our learning and development professionals?
Right.
How do we involve people in designing the communications other than our communications experts? How do we involve people in designing the cadence, or the the pace of how we roll out this change? how do we involve people in developing an assessment that really truly measures our culture or really truly measures our baseline for whether we're ready at this moment in time to even start thinking about taking on a new change,
Mhm.
especially a big change. I think I've seen most of that done from a either change lead or a change practitioner group or some sort of small group of change related stakeholders, a team. In the past, you've called it a project implementation team.
Sure.
That could be the type of thing where it's a very small group that says, this is how the change is going to run and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have not seen a lot of true co-creation where you're inviting people in to say, okay, Mr. or Mrs. Subject Matter Expert, how do you think we should develop this training?
Mhm.
Maybe you get people to help advise, is this training saying the right things from a technical perspective or a compliance perspective? Is it saying the right things from a jargon perspective?
Sure.
Or you involve someone from legal that says, is this training legally okay? Is it going to get are we staying within the boundaries of what we can say from a contracting perspective with our vendor or whatever?
Mhm.
Are we staying appropriate to the regulations from this country or this region? I've not seen a lot of that co-creation, true co-creation from the change side,
Mhm.
at least that I can think of recently. But it seems like that would be pretty fertile ground for getting maybe better buy-in faster.
Sure.
You
Sure.
could figure out a way to do that.
Yeah. Well,
Um, have you seen that?
I do have an example, well, actually two examples. Why don't we do want to take a quick break? When we come back, I'll share that.
Yeah, that would be cool. All right, so when we come back,
Yeah.
you'll say how it should work
Well, I
or
don't know
how
about
you've
should,
seen
but
it work
I've seen it
in
work.
real life.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it work. So, okay, cool.
Cool.
We'll be right back. At Harmonious Workplaces, we believe work should provide purpose, satisfaction, and growth. We empower people to thrive by fostering environments where individuals can find meaning in their work and organizations can succeed through thoughtful, well-executed strategies. We're committed to making work better for the people who do it and the leaders who guide them. To discover how harmonious workplaces can impact your organization, visit www.harmoniousworkplaces.com and book a free 30-minute information session with one of our consultants today. Again, that's www.harmoniousworkplaces.com. And we're back. So Ben, before we went to the break, you were talking about that you haven't seen this co-creation process work um, on. Give it to me again, Ben.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of co-creation. Our example had been a new software
Right,
system, and I've seen a lot of co-creation designing
designing.
the
Yeah,
software system
right.
and participating in what that system should do or
Yeah,
what that process, a new process, what that new process should look like.
sure.
That's the technical side.
Yep,
To me, that's the technical side of things.
yep,
What is this new process going to be? What
yep.
is this new software going to look like? I've not seen it as much, or really recently, I've not seen it at all in the gigs I've been involved with, where it's co-creating the change
The change
itself.
itself, right? And you were
And so
talking
that's where I
specific.
think you said that you had some examples where you've seen that, where people have invited in participation and co-creation of the change. How are we going to roll out this change? How are we going to engage with stakeholders?
Right.
How are we going to help make this thing more sustainable to what we were talking about
Yeah.
before?
Yeah. So, yeah, and you were specifically talking about like from an L&D perspective, learning development type of perspective, training perspective, that type of
Yeah,
things, right?
it was one example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Which makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, training, of course, is a part of change, but it's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um, but it is part of that knowledge and ability building from the ICAR formula, right? So,
Oh yeah, yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
so it's
Well,
super
in
important.
any model framework structure worth its salt, there's going to be some element
Yeah.
of explaining to people how they need to do the new.
Right, right. So, so in a software implementation for a this was specifically in a legal setting, right? Moving from one software to another. Um, the everybody had to go through the basic training to which was first um, self-service online, and then there were some instructor-led courses, right? But it's the same that everybody gets.
Hmm.
Where the co-creation happened was then going back to the individual people in the office, and actually not even individuals. I actually had a workshop session with them where we discussed what is your continued pain, like what to do your job, what is causing friction for you to use this every day, or why would you want to go back to this other tool, or whatever that is. And that's where I think where the individualized um where the creation of the training can happen together, right, to meet those individual needs, right? So your front office people are like, well, now I don't have an idea for how this intake process works, right? It's different. The forms are different, blah blah blah, right? And it's like, okay, cool, that's good to know. Let's gather the requirements. Let's look at the requirements we gathered before, and then let's see where the gaps are, and we can actually work to build that out. So in this case, it was a matter of building the form in a different way, and we added some new forms and tried it out, and it worked, right? So
Oh,
so,
that's great.
and then we were
Yeah.
training the group on how to use this, going forward. And from a legal standpoint, there was how do we handle the documents and that type of thing, right? And so, um, which again was different, right? So
Hmm.
that was um, that was looking at what was the as is, like, so that you go back to that initial analysis that you might have done before the change, um, the as is, and then looking at, like, okay, this ideally this is actually how it's supposed to work with the software. So we have to work with changing your behavior on this. The software is working, but your behavior needs to change. And here's the specific step by step that's different from what you were doing before, right? And so that was one example. The other one that I can think of is I've done a bunch of Salesforce implementations in the past, right? And other CRMs, but I'll specifically use Salesforce. And
Customer relationship
yes,
management,
customer
CRM.
relationship
Yeah.
management, yeah.
Yeah.
And so this was within a commercial real estate environment, and um, again, it's the basic training, and then I had actually created my own training course. But then there's a level of some um, observing the behaviors of people after the change has been implemented, and going, oh, why are you still using external resource? And not going, shame on you for using that external resource. It's, wait, I need to understand why you're doing this and put this into the context of, here, you can actually do that in here. And then you create, from that, you can work with that person to create the training for the rest of the team, because there may be, like we talked about, clandestine behaviors, right, that we don't really know what's happening. Then we can co-create something that works for everybody, so that we can at least narrow the gap, if not eliminate the gap. So
Right.
we have people using the software as it's intended, and more importantly, to stop using those things that actually cause risk to the company, where those external tools, you can't
Yeah.
measure them, you can't,
Or
and it
they may
happens
be
all the
out of
time.
compliance if there's a regulatory reason,
That's
or
exactly right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
or a security concern if it's not in a protected environment,
For
whatever.
sure. Yep.
That's really nice. I like that a
Yeah.
lot. And to me, one of the things that stands out, which is something that we've talked about and we hear about, and you see it a lot in kind of popular press, is this idea of listening and recognizing and saying that whatever I'm seeing and observing is a data point and it's information, and I shouldn't use that to castigate people or to shame people, but I should use that as a learning opportunity to say, why are these folks continuing to behave in this way, or why are these folks adopting a different behavior? What is it that we need to do differently about our change to help them become more interested in whatever change we're trying to roll out? And that mental perspective of let's see this and take it for what it is and say, how can we learn from it and improve our change? That's so cool
Yeah. Yeah.
that you were able to have that work in that environment. That's
Yeah.
great. It's a good example of saying this is this is not just sort of woo woo science. This is something that can be done in real life,
Can be done.
and
Yeah.
here's the benefit of doing it this way in real
Sure.
life,
Sure.
rather than the sort of hierarchical top down. Thou shalt not continue to do this, because that doesn't always work.
That's for sure. Right on. I
Yeah.
mean, and there are ways of, and I think that I mean, this might actually be something for us to talk about in the future. Some stuff on like continuous improvement, like after the change, right, and continuous improvement afterwards. Because things like I think are called the Gemba walks, Gemba, right, where you're actually the manager is getting up, walking around, observing, not making a
Hmm.
judgment, just observing what's happening, right,
Right.
post change, right? I mean that these are really meant for operations and watching, observing, recognizing,
Hmm.
communicating, cooperating, solving, right?
Yeah,
That's
like you said, continuous improvement.
right, right. But you're actually
Right.
like just observing what's happening, and then you can go in and start asking questions. Why are we doing it this way? And we would expect, and you can tee it up with, we would expect that you would be doing it this way. So why is it this way? Is there something we could learn from that so we can help others to be able to do this, or correct the behavior if it's something that's not really in the protocol that should be
Hmm.
followed.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Well, we're about at that time, Ben.
Woo, we are.
There's
Yeah.
a lot to co-creation.
There sure can be.
Yeah.
And I think, as we were talking about it today, it just seems like there's uh, in terms of that one thing that you can do to help make a change feel or be more co-creative, be more inclusive, be more
Co-creating as we
co-createy,
yes.
as one might say in the biz. Um, and not just for the sake of saying that you've put it on a newsletter that the team co-created this, but just so that it can be adopted and more efficiently, more effectively, that people will be able to change their behavior easier. That's really the end goal of all this, is
Sure.
to adopt the change behaviors, keep it sustainable, like you said. There's an intentionality and
Mm,
kind of what you were mentioning before, that openness to see things without judging. I think those are maybe one, or they're probably two separate. So 1A and 1B
right. But I love that you
of
bring it. I mean,
the thing that I would do
yeah,
to make the change as co-creative as possible.
yeah, and I love
Yeah. What
that,
about
Ben,
you?
because you've brought in multiple episodes, and you're spot on with this. Is that intentionality, that
Yeah.
purpose, to doing this, right? Being very intentional about it.
Right. Well, I feel like we've talked about it before, but it's staying locked in on the why we're
Right.
doing this change, and not fixating so much on the how,
Yeah.
within whatever guardrails that you have,
Sure.
from a safety perspective or a regulatory perspective or a technology perspective, a security
Right.
perspective. But the nuances, the details of the how, I think you were getting in it before. Leave those to the experts.
Sure.
Help help them help you make that clear to everyone. But then the why we're doing this, that can stay as your North Star, and you
Absolutely.
can get there in a lot of different ways.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. And when that is muddy, right? It's really hard to follow. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I like that. Another good name for a consulting company. So we were talking before about Wet Noodle Consulting Company,
For-
Cloudy Day Consulting Company. We could have Muddy Waters Consulting
oh, I
Company.
love it. I'm going to write that
Especially
down.
here in Chicago.
There you go. Cool.
That one might be trademarked.
It could be, but we'll figure it out. Start
Muddy River.
Right on. All right. Well, thanks a million for joining us, folks.
We'd
For
love to
this.
hear what other folks think. Share your stories of co-creation, what's worked well, how have you gotten people to help you make your change more effective, more efficient, more co-createy.
I love it. All right, Ben, take us out today.
Thanks again for listening. Until next time, make change your friend.
Thanks for listening to Harmonious Workplaces. You can find all episodes, resources, and ways to connect with us at www.harmoniousworkplaces.com. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love your feedback. Please rate, review, share, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. And don't forget to add Harmonious Workplaces to your favorites so you're notified when new episodes are released. Again, visit us at www.harmoniousworkplaces.com.